statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Welcome traders, welcome followers, welcome friends, welcome haters. Welcome to all. Welcome once again to another live Spaces with Oliver Velez. Of course, my name is Oliver Velez, and as I'm always reminding you, I am your 13%er. I'm your 13%er Bitcoiner. All right, a lot of people ask me what that means. That means basically it was commonly said, or it was said a while ago, that approximately 13% of all people who have adopted Bitcoin are Bitcoin only. And so, yes, I am a part of that 13%. I am a Bitcoin only supporter, proponent, for lack of a better phrase. Quite honestly, I believe you should be as well. All right, I do want to also make everyone here aware of the fact that I literally ask you for nothing other than that you stop, listen, and take a look. That is the only thing that I ask of you. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to have you subscribe to anything. Yes, I do have services, but I am not here to do that. I am here to spread the gospel of Bitcoin. I'm here to share the experience and the epiphany that I've had because of this incredibly special asset. I'm here to let you know how it's dramatically in a relatively short period of time has changed my perspective on money, life, trading, investing. And all I ask of you is that you investigate. All I ask for you is that you don't, in a flippant way, let what I believe the most unique opportunities humans have ever had access to in a flippant way, let that go by. So anyway, today I decided to have a session on lump sum Bitcoin investing versus dollar cost averaging Bitcoin investing. And this is a topic that, quite to my surprise, actually comes up a lot more frequently than I ever thought it would be. On one side of the equation, I actually think the debate is quite silly. I'm not quite sure why so many people get overheated regarding which version of going into Bitcoin is better, because just going into Bitcoin is enough. I actually don't care if you lump sum into Bitcoin. I don't care whether you dollar cost average into Bitcoin. I don't care whether you do backflips into Bitcoin, cartwheels into Bitcoin. I don't care how you get into Bitcoin. I think the most important thing is just adopting Bitcoin, being in Bitcoin, and ultimately reaching that point where you begin to use Bitcoin as your unit of account. And it is at that particular point where I think the greatest changes in your life occurs when you adopt Bitcoin as your unit of account. In that respect, I think the argument is quite silly. Getting into Bitcoin is important enough and is sufficient enough without us really delving into fights whether this way of getting into it is better than another way. But with that being said, there are certain things on the other hand that make me understand why at times it is somewhat of a debate. And I'd like to talk to you about that a little bit. Just for the benefit of those who might not understand what lump sum investing is, it is primarily just taking all of what you have available and have carved out for going into an item like Bitcoin and dumping it in at one point in time at one price, and you're done. That is the lump sum approach to going in. This lump sum approach of going in all at once, at one price, at one point in time, is the antithesis of what I've been taught as a professional market participant over 40 years, guys. I started my career on Wall Street in December of 1986. I've done virtually nothing else with my life except play financial markets professionally. I have no other skill. I have no other capability. People come to me and ask me my opinion about things that I have absolutely no idea about. Why? I have no idea, because the only thing I've ever done with my entire adult life and even my adolescent life is basically trade markets. Trade financial markets. That is the only expertise that I can claim in this world. Some people might feel that that's debatable, but that is the way I see it. I was always, in my approach to markets, I've always been taught, and I use the word taught loosely because there was really no teaching back in the 1980s, but basically it was a sacrilege to dump everything that you had on one price at one specific point in time because of two very important things. That lump summing that way exposed you to two risks. Risk number one, it exposed you to price risk. Risk number two, it exposed you to time risk. And so the very best approach to going into something is to go into it in a way where you minimize price risk and you minimize time risk. Now, I'd like to go over these two risks just so that you understand the difference between the two. Price risk is when you basically go to Vegas and you go to Vegas for a weekend, Las Vegas for a weekend to gamble. You've gone with $10,000. Instead of spreading out your $10,000 over a variety of bets throughout the entire weekend, you take the $10,000, you dump it as soon as you get to Las Vegas, the first roulette wheel you get to, you dump your whole $10,000 on red 13. What you've done here, you have exposed yourself to the highest level of price risk in this scenario, right? So you've only picked one price, 13, the color red 13. So you haven't spread out your $10,000 over a variety of different prices, like 13, 7, I'll take 3, and I'll take 9. So you haven't done that. You've exposed yourself to one of the many prices, and you've maximized price risk with the lump sum on red 13. So that's price risk versus spreading out your $10,000 bet or investment over a variety of prices. The time risk is, in this scenario, is akin to, well, you didn't even check into a hotel in Las Vegas. You dropped your bags at the first roulette wheel you saw in a casino, and you put every single thing that you had available at that specific point in time. And so you did not give yourself an opportunity to spread your money out over a variety of different hours, over a variety of different days that you were there. And so that's time risk. If you got there Friday to Las Vegas, what if a better time to bet was Saturday, but you bet everything on Friday? What if a better time arose during Sunday, but you've exposed yourself to only one point in time, one moment, 1 second, one day, one moment, 1 second out of the entire weekend, and you did not give yourself an opportunity to experience better periods or better probabilistic, sometimes I have trouble with that word, times throughout your entire time stay. And so these are some of the downsides of lump summing in. And in my industry, my business, lump summing in is more of a novice approach versus a professional approach. No institutional investor would come into a market with the idea of getting 1.3 million shares of a stock and call up the floor or their traders and say, listen, I want 1.3 million shares of this stock, buy it right now. No, they would give them a working order and a specific period of time to work themselves into a 1.3 million share position of the stock over a variety of price ranges and over a specific period of time. And an order like that might go, over the next 7 weeks, I'd like to have 1.3 million shares. Accumulate these 1.3 million shares over this specific time at your discretion. If you can give me VWAP, all right, volume weighted average price, if you can guarantee me VWAP, I'll give you the rest. And so what that type of order says is that if you can accumulate this 1.3 million shares less than the VWAP price at the end of this time period, you can keep the difference between, you can keep the savings for yourself. I'm okay getting VWAP, the VWAP price. In my line of work, my whole career, lump summing was what novices did, accumulating over time and space, accumulating to minimize price risk and time risk was what professionals did. Now, those are the downsides of lump summing. There are some upsides, and I'd like to touch upon those in just a tiny bit. What I want to do now that you understand what lump summing is, I just want you to understand what the traditional plain vanilla dollar cost averaging approach is. Now, dollar cost averaging has been around for quite some time. And the plain vanilla form is to basically pick a period of time, like weekly or monthly. And what you're to do is you're to take a specific amount that never changes, like $100. And let's say every Monday at noon, you're going to put in $100, irrespective of what's happening in the world, irrespective of what's happening with the underlying asset, irrespective of what the price is. Price doesn't matter. Events don't matter. Nothing matters but the consistency of applying a $100 investment or bet that wins. Now, what does that dollar cost averaging approach do? Well, it accomplishes exactly where lump sum trading or investing, it shores up some of the weaknesses, I should say, of lump sum investing or trading. When you're dollar cost averaging, you are actually eliminating volatility. As it relates to Bitcoin, one of the major drawbacks one of the major characteristics that many people feel is a drawback to Bitcoin, I think it's actually a friend, and you'll understand that in just a second here, is its volatility. Well, when you dollar cost average, you actually turn volatility into a friend. You make volatility work for you. You make volatility a wealth builder. You make volatility a guaranteer of getting a better price on average than the vast majority of lump sum players. Not all the time. It's not guaranteed, because if you lump sum happen to luck yourself into a lump sum at the very low of a move, then your dollar cost averager is going to lose against that lump sum player. But the point I'm trying to make is that over a period of time, not a specific point in time, the DCAer will remove volatility from the underlying asset. And what DCAing this way does as well is it creates a more professional way to enter a play, meaning that you buy more when you're low. So $100 buys more Bitcoin at 15,000 than $100 buys at 37,000. So it actually compels the market participant to actually buy more low and buy less high. And that professional approach is built into the dollar cost averaging scheme. So one cannot be unprofessional in his or her approach with dollar cost averaging. You can be very unprofessional and lump sum in at 69,000 when after Bitcoin has run 2.5 years to the upside, is way away from its initial starting point, and it's in its final last few weeks historically of its cycle. So while it's very possible to be unprofessional with a lump sum approach, it is impossible to be unprofessional with a dollar cost averaging approach. And so because of these things, if someone were to force me to choose between the two, I will choose dollar cost averaging for that person who's asking me and forcing me to give them an answer, which one, dollar cost averaging or lump sum, I'm going to choose dollar cost averaging for them every single day of the week and twice on Sunday. Just because I know with that approach, they can't be unprofessional. Just because I know with that approach, they are minimizing price risk. Just because with that approach, I know they're guaranteed to minimize time risk as well. And if I haven't made time risk more clear, let me do that now. Time risk is, for instance, there are certain periods of the year that are statistically and seasonally more bullish, and there are periods that are more bearish. So let me give you an example of this. In the equity markets, as an example, September is statistically the worst month of the year. Not every single year, but for overall the equity markets, September is a negative month most of the years throughout its history, and it is the deepest or the reddest month. Conversely, May kind of runs as one of the more bullish months of the year. It slightly has an edge over the other months. I'll give you another example. If you were to take 3-month periods, the 3 most bearish months of the year collectively are primarily August. It actually starts late July, but August, September, and into the middle of October. That period of time for equity markets is statistically the worst time to be a buyer. Well, it depends on how you buy. If you're dollar cost averaging, it's the best time to be a buyer. That's typically where a big portion of the market's negativity comes from, that period. And many of you might have heard of the saying, sell in May and go away. All right, largely because of the summer doldrums, which typically ends in a climactic move to the downside statistically during August, September into October. Now, October tends to get the bad rap because many of the stock markets, bear market collapses or very well-known crashes have occurred in October, but those are capitulation crashes versus a period of negativity, which statistically is August, September, and October. Now, not so surprisingly, the 3 most bullish periods of the year statistically are right after the 3 most bearish. That is late October into November, December, into the beginning of January. Statistically, the market has delivered more gains during that period of time during other periods of time. Now, these are somewhat small in terms of their edge, but they're still edges worth noting. This seasonality, these periods have different risk versus reward profiles. If you know these seasonal periods, then this might give you an edge to where dollar cost averaging heavier during August, September into October will outperform statistically the person who just lump sums, because you're dollar cost averaging over a period of time where the dollar cost averager shines over and beyond the lump sum trader. And the lump sum trader has an edge, all right, based on this seasonality at the end of September and the beginning of October. If that person can't dollar cost average and wants to lump sum, statistically, that would be the best time to lump sum at the bottom of that historically seasonal bear market period. My point is that because all time is different, there are some times that are better than other times. All right. What dollar cost averaging does is allow the trader to minimize the risk of missing out on some of the favorable times. And when it's not so favorable, the dollar cost averager is actually going in less, because usually for a dollar cost averager, The period that's not favorable is actually the bullish period. But during the bullish period, the plain vanilla dollar cost averager is actually going in less, is actually accumulating less at the worst times and more at the best times. With all of that being said, I am aware of the fact that over long periods of time, the lump sum trader, the lump sum approach actually edges out the dollar cost averager. Now, that seems to be contrary to everything that I've said regarding my slant for most people toward dollar cost averaging, but it's not in a way. And you'll understand in just a second why it's not. Yes, studies have proven that the lump sum trader or the lump sum investor over a long period of time does edge out the dollar cost averager. And that is assuming that you're dealing with a market that over time does drift higher or move higher. And when it comes to Bitcoin, we know that every 4 years, we're virtually mathematically guaranteed to be higher. And so we are dealing with a market that has an upside bias. And because of that, the lump sum investor is over time going to outperform the person who keeps a portion of their money and starts off small by going in little by little, week by week. And so with that being said, being aware that over time, lump sum wins over dollar cost averaging, I have always told my traders to split the baby. And this is why I think the entire argument is silly, because first of all, the edge is not as huge as one might think, even though lump sum wins. It's not so extraordinary where you just want to ignore dollar cost averaging. But I've always taught my traders that when you are caught between two extremes, an extreme choice, do I lump sum? That's one extreme. Or do I dollar cost averaging? Why not split the baby and do both? That's why the argument is silly. Why is it that one must choose? If you got two dream cars in the world and you're able to do them, why choose when you can do both? Splitting the baby is the best way to get the benefits from all. So what I tell traders to do is that if you have a lump sum and you have a 4+ year time horizon, don't worry about easing this in, because 4 years is the ultimate equalizer for us. It's the ultimate smoother of all volatility in Bitcoin out of the equation. So what are you worried about pennies for if your view is 4 years plus out? So if you've got a 4+ year time horizon, meaning that you don't really care what this item does within the next 4 years, it's almost like you're going to wake up and look at it every 4 years on its birthday every 4 years, because Bitcoin's birthdays are leap years, right? Then it doesn't matter. Take everything that you have available and just lump sum in. It doesn't matter whether you're lump summing in high or low. It doesn't really matter if you're holding this for multiple cycles, one cycle, full cycle, but certainly preferably multiple cycles, right? But at the same time, you should do or employ a dollar cost averaging approach as well. I tell traders, lump sum in what you have now, but every single week add to this thing. Lump sum in now, but every single week add to this thing. So now you're combining the best of both of these things. You're getting all of what you have available in, but at the same time, as you go out and mine US dollars or whatever fiat nonsense that you are forced or compelled to give your work for, as you go out and mine your fiat currency, I always believe that a portion of that fiat currency should be converted into the hardest money ever known to mankind. And that's what you dollar cost average. Lump sum savings into Bitcoin, dollar cost average your mining of fiat currency. Lump sum your savings, dollar cost average your mining of fiat currency. Don't let your fiat, all of your fiat currency stay trapped into the slave system. Take a portion of your fiat earnings and convert every single week or every single month. All right. But I prefer every single week. Does this make sense? This splitting the baby, guys, and I know that we might have different religions here, but my mother was extraordinarily religious, and she's a Christian, which pretty much meant that I grew up in a very religious home and grew up in the Christian faith. And for those of you who are in the Christian faith, you'll be familiar with the story or the historical characters, King Solomon. And King Solomon was supposed to be the wisest man on earth at the time. And he reigned over his kingdom with a great deal of wisdom. And once every week, he would have open court to all of his subjects and all of the people in the kingdom to come to him to resolve issues. And one specific issue was presented to him by two women who claimed ownership or motherhood of a child. So each of these two women claimed that this child is mine. And the woman that was holding the child claimed that the other woman without the child, her baby died in the night and is now trying to claim that her baby is hers. And the one without the baby is saying, no, my child didn't die. Her child died. And she, in the middle of the night, while I and my baby were sleeping, stole my baby from his crib. That is my baby. And so Solomon, in all his wisdom, said, well, I have the perfect solution. We are going to split the baby. Since I was not there and cannot determine which one of your stories is true, we are going to place the baby on this center piece here. I'm going to have my swordsman cut the baby in half. He's going to split the baby, and one half goes to you, and the other half goes to you. The swordsman goes over to the woman with the baby. She does not resist. He places the baby down on this table of sorts. The swordsman lifts his sword to the high. Moments before he is intended or supposedly going to strike, one woman yells out and says, no, no, the baby is hers. And Solomon said, well, in truth, the baby is yours. Take your baby, ma'am, and be gone. And so what's the meaning behind this splitting the baby? I've used this throughout my entire life to basically come up with sound decisions that involve two extreme or two opposite possibilities. I have found that in most cases, the truth of something lies pretty close to the middle of two extreme views or two extreme opinions or two extreme options. And so by splitting the baby, you get the truth. By Solomon claiming to split the baby, he found out the truth. We are splitting the baby between lump sum, one extreme, and dollar cost averaging. Lump sum is claiming that the baby is his. Dollar cost averaging is claiming that the baby is his. We're going to split the baby and get the truth. And so when you have savings, when you get a lump sum, you get a bonus, or you had a certain amount that you're not going to need for 4 years. Instead of putting that in little by little, lump sum that in. But as you mine every single day, as you mine for US dollars every single week, you are to take a portion of your mined dollars and you are to convert that to Bitcoin. Understand that we don't buy Bitcoin. We say this just because it's convenient to say, but it's not truth. Those words fail us when it comes to what's really truly going on. We are not purchasing Bitcoin. We are converting a weak form of money into the strongest money that's ever existed. When we change 4/4 for $1, we don't say that we are buying the dollar for 4/4. Can I buy $1 from you for 4/4, please? No, we say, can I exchange 4/4 for $1 for you? It's an exchange. So in the same fashion, when you're taking $100 of mined US fiat and you're not buying Bitcoin, an equal amount of Bitcoin, you're exchanging one form, a weaker form that can never go up in purchasing power. It can only go down, for one that every 4 years is mathematically guaranteed to go up in purchasing power, which is another way of saying it's guaranteed to make you wealthier and guaranteed to make everything else less expensive every 4 years of your life forever. For this reason, my traders and I, we laugh when we hear people getting all red in the face about this argument, because we do both. We split the baby. What are we talking about? And we, in my opinion, should not be defaming anybody who chooses one or the other. The fact that only 0.05%, half of 1% of this entire world has reached the level of consciousness to understand that they should have some Bitcoin. That is extraordinarily small. Half of 1% of all humans on Earth have reached that point that they understand they should at least have some exposure to this special asset. That is enough. We should not be arguing about which one of those 0.5% of those elite people are better than others because of the way they've chosen to become the 0.5%. I think is freaking stupid. I will also end by telling you this, guys. I will end this monologue by telling you this. Dollar cost averaging did change my life. It had a huge, profound effect on my life. I started my investment career back in March of 1981. Now, I told you that I landed my first professional trading job on Wall Street in December of 1986. I started my investment journey in March of 1981. The first stock I purchased in a small amount, all right, I remember it to this very day, it was 12 shares, was a stock called Eli Lilly. I still have it to this very day. Because my amount was so small, I decided to do this through a program that was sponsored by Eli Lilly, that's commonly referred to today as a DRIP program. Now, DRIP stands for Dividend Reinvestment Program. And through these DRIP programs, you could literally send the money directly to the company. I sent a check directly to Eli Lilly, and they would issue me stock from the company's treasury, and I could do fractional shares. Now, fractional shares are a thing today, but they weren't a thing in the early 1980s. And the only way to be able to buy a fractional share of a company was if a company had a DRIP program, if it sponsored a dividend reinvestment program. Now, what this did was allow one to buy half a share, a quarter of a share, a tenth of a share, but also to earn dividends on whatever amount they had, even if it was a fractional share, but with the idea that that dividend had to be reinvested into the stock itself. Thus, the name Dividend Reinvestment Plan. I contributed to Eli Lilly, get this, for 30 years. 30 years. I had an automatic program for 30 years. I have told this story from the late 1990s, guys. I've been telling my Eli Lilly story. Everyone who knows me knows my Eli Lilly story. I've been telling it since the 90s. We're now in 2023. I still have Eli Lilly.
Although this year I did, for the very first time in my whole life, I started taking major chunks of it off to put that into Bitcoin. But only this year, for the first time since 1981. Now, I challenge you, I want you to go to a monthly chart of Eli Lilly. The symbol is LLY, Lilly. I want you to go to that stock and look at a monthly chart and go all the way back to the beginning of the 1980s until now. I am telling you that my drip programs in Eli Lilly, Microsoft, not Microsoft, I didn't do it in Microsoft. Microsoft, I don't think had one, but McDonald's, Home Depot, all of these things created massive amounts of wealth over the decades. And what it did was it removed the volatility that periods during these plays had. It actually made me appreciate volatility because it became normal for me to understand that the stock is now down 28% off of its high, which means that my drip DCAing is going to actually get me more. Because I started off with drip programs, it has created this extra appreciation for how life-changing that approach can be. It changed my life. It had a profound effect on my life, and it shaped my thinking about proper market play. It formed this proper foundation in me that understood that down is good if you've got the right item. It's not bad. And what most people struggle with today is this erroneous concept they have backwards, where down is bad and up is good. In my business, up is sold and down is bought. But in the novice world, down is sold and up is bought. It's backwards. No, we don't sell Bitcoin, but that's the exception. But down is good. But you've got to make sure that you have a sound underlying asset that you're applying this approach to. Therein is the rub. And since we're here talking about Bitcoin, we don't have that issue. We know that Bitcoin is the best performing asset the world has ever known. In April of 2024, it will become the hardest item on earth, meaning the hardest item to reproduce. That's what hard asset means. You can't produce it. The hardest asset to produce on earth, which leads into it being the scarcest valuable asset on earth, the scarcest asset with value on earth. There are things that are more scarce than Bitcoin, like my pairs of socks, but nobody's going to buy those. The scarcest asset, valuable asset on earth is Bitcoin. The best performing asset on earth is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most secure network on the planet. It's in 14 years, it's the 11th most valuable asset in the entire world. It's the 20th most valuable currency out of 200 in the world, and it's still a freaking baby. It's 14 going on 15 years. And so we don't have a doubt whether or not we have the right asset. We can put that concern aside. So now down is good. That's right. Once you can answer yes to the question, do you have a sound asset? Do you have the right asset? If you can answer yes, then every single down is good. Every single one. And you know what taught me that? Dollar cost averaging with my drip programs. I did this with every single one of my kids' trust fund accounts. I did this with all of my accounts, and it changed my life. It revolutionized the way I look at and play financial markets to this very day. And I was fortunate enough to catch some of this century's best assets. And I will say this one last thing. Because of dollar cost averaging through drips, it made me less susceptible to selling. That's right. It made me less susceptible to selling. It actually made me want the next decline. It made me when the item was running to the upside, it made me hope for the next decline. The approach doesn't, it actually encourages that you get more versus that you trade it or get out of it or try to be fancy with it. And I will tell you, despite the fact that I am internationally known more as a short-term oriented trader, 95+% of everything I've ever done has been on the long-term investment holding side. I've held things longer than many of you have lived on this planet Earth and continue to. And so when I tell you that I have no intentions of selling the rarest asset on earth, the hardest money the world has ever seen, the best performing asset in the world, and the most secure network human beings have ever had access to, when I tell you that I am not selling, I mean I am not selling. The same way I didn't sell Eli Lilly for 30 years. And Apple for just as long, Microsoft, Amazon, all of those things. All right. So I am primarily a long-term holder. 5% of what I do is actually on the short-term trading side, despite the fact that I'm more internationally known as that. So anyway, guys, that's my little take on lump sum versus dollar cost averaging. Just wondering if any of you have any questions. Let me take a look. And instead of taking this as an insult that you don't have questions, I'm going to take it as a compliment, which means that I was thorough enough to answer all of your questions ahead of time. But let's see here. Oliver, what are drips? Google is your friend, my friend. But yeah, take a look into it. It's dividend reinvestment programs. They are programs that used to be quite a lot more popular back at the time I started. And guys, I started investing because I didn't have enough money on my own. I started an investment club with family members, and that investment club grew to literally thousands of members in my investment club all over the country, all over the United States. It was actually when CompuServe came into existence. Now, I know I'm dating myself. Many of you probably don't even know what CompuServe is. That I was able to spread back in the late 80s, early 90s through CompuServe, I was able to spread that investment club to members way beyond my family members. And everything was largely through these drip programs. Because we didn't want to wait for the capital to accumulate to the point of being able to buy a set equal number of shares. Plus, when you are participating in these drip programs, you don't pay commissions. So we were eliminating commissions, which was maximizing profitability because there's no cost. So the company you're buying direct from their treasury, they're not a brokerage firm, so they can't even legally mark up the shares on you. They can't charge a commission. So you got your shares commission free. You were buying direct from the company. The company managed the drip program, and you could cash out anytime you wanted. So it's pretty amazing. Agreed. No, Nuolo is saying agreed. Live in the best of both worlds, especially with long-term horizons, lump sum and DCA. Let's go. That's right. Rose says, yes, good to hear you. I'm back. I did a bad thing last night. You got drunk and bought your first shitcoin. What? What are you doing, guys? Don't even waste time with that nonsense. I find that the urge to dabble in the altcoins, the shitcoins, is really still a symptom of fiat poisoning in a way. You're looking for the Las Vegas bet. And this is what our fiat currency driven society today has fostered, because money does not retain value. And the longer you hold on to it, the weaker and less valuable it becomes over time. Even unconsciously, that trains us as a society to just whimsically get rid of it. If by holding it, I'm worse off, then let me just even whimsically get rid of it now, because it's worth less later. And even if you're not conscious of that, you'll actually start adopting this very irresponsible way that leads to poverty. It leads to poverty when there is no forethought with what you do with the excess of your life. Your money is a representation of the energy, the life, and the time you've given into something. The value you've given, you receive in exchange a piece of paper, now a digit on a screen, right? That piece of paper or digit on the screen represents the very life that you gave. And to whimsically just throw that at anything is akin to basically having disrespect for the very life that you have, for the very value that you claim that you are, because that's the representation of your value that you gave. You gave your employer value for 8 hours or 40 hours, and in exchange for your time, your effort, your energy, your intelligence, your work, that's the stuff that your life is made up of. You gave that to another man, and another man said, here's your fiat currency in exchange for the life your life that you gave me. So whenever you give what you are to another human being and you receive something in exchange for that, you've received yourself. Now, to take yourself, that representation of your very life, and to throw it away on some shirt with another dude's name on it that costs $1,500 is insane to me. That's fiat mind poisoning. To take the very value that you put into something and to throw money up in the air, or to buy silly shit with it that has no value, that you're going to forget about 2 weeks from now, to buy a freaking purse with somebody's name on it that costs $5,000. This is all nonsense. To take that value and to buy someone else's other crap with the hope, another shit coin, with the hope, a worse shit coin than the one you just earned, and to hope that the other man's shit coin is going to give you something, is fiat mind poisoning. Now, I know that some people win in Las Vegas, but for every winner in Las Vegas, I promise you, I can find 100 million losers. And that's all that shitcoin game is. Yeah, there are periods where a rising tide raises shit too. All right, I understand that. But it's still shit. And so I say, let's do this the right way. Good things take time. And if you've got 4 years, you can change your life forever in 4 years. Guys, listen to this for a second. Check this out. Smoke on this. Chew on this. All right. If I were to tell you that 4 years from now, you are guaranteed to be richer if you bet right now. Just bet. If you bet right now. And if you knew without a shadow of a doubt that 4 years from today, I'm going to be wealthier. And it's up to you let me just even put it this way. If you could buy this one item and it's guaranteed to be substantially more 4 years from now, and you were convinced, you knew that it was going to be, and you knew that this could change your life if you put everything you possibly could into it now, knowing that it's impossible for this not to be substantially more valuable 4 years from now. When you do everything in your might, everything in your power, when you dedicate your whole life over the next 4 years to making sure that 4 years from today, your entire world is different, your entire state of being, your entire level of wealth, the way your family is going to be totally different. That's what we have in Bitcoin. That's the certainty that we have in Bitcoin. We know that in 4 years from now, the supply is less. We know that 0.5%, half of 1%, that number's not going down, that number's going up. We know the institutions are coming. We know that 14 years in a global asset is not even at the starting line yet. That 14 years in Apple was 1994. And that was early for Apple, and that 14 years for the internet was 1997, and that was early for the internet. We're 14 years into this, and we know that 4 years from now, it's substantially higher. Why aren't you like a freaking madman? Why aren't you like madmen scurrying about, scraping, biting, scratching, fighting for everything that you possibly can to put in now because of that freaking guarantee? Why? Because your mind is in poison. You haven't done the work. You haven't investigated deeply enough to understand this. And you're still being pulled by the corrupt system that doesn't want to let you go. My grandmother taught my cousin and me a life lesson. We were 8 years old, and my grandmother lived 2 blocks away from a beach, and we would go spend our summers with my grandmother. And my grandmother one Saturday says, boys, for my cousin and me, his name is Tony. Tony, Ali, my grandmother used to call me Ali, we're going to go crabbing today. Oh boy, did we get excited. She handed each of us a pail and a net. So we walked this 2 blocks to the beach. She goes out a little ways with us and says, they're all there laying at the bottom. Scoop them up and put them in your little pail. I'm going to wait over here. And so we were just having a ball, scooping up the crabs, putting them in our pail. And I remember when my pail started to approach the top, where I had about 2/3 of the pail filled, I remember getting scared that if I continued to fill, that the crabs were going to crawl out. So I remember running to my grandmother with my almost a little bit more than halfway filled pail and saying, Grandma, if I keep putting more in, they're going to escape. They're going to get out. And she called Tony over and said, listen, I want to teach you something about crabs. Crabs, when you're crabbing, you never need a top. Notice that I did not give you a top for your pails. You don't need a top, because if one of those crabs tries to get out of the pail, all of the other crabs will reach up and pull him all the way back down. They will do the job for you. No tops are needed. Now, little did I know that my grandmother had this very same lesson for every single one of their children, including my mother, and every single one of her grandchildren, to teach them the story of life, where as people try to escape an enslaved-like system, an enslavement, the overseers have to do very little to keep that system intact after a certain point. After the conditioning is there, all of the others will pull you back in as you try to escape. It is very difficult to break through. Bitcoin is our freedom. It's that beacon light that causes us to see through the matrix. It pulls us out of this thing, but the altcoins are a part of the same system. Money, core forms of money, controlled by a small group of people, unlimited supply, centralized, insecure. It's just wrapped it's wrapped under the banner of cryptocurrency, but it's the same bullshit reaching up for you to pull you back in to the same system. I was subject to it for a few months, I'd say about a year. I was subject to it, but I saw the light relatively quickly. And I'll have to say, guys, during my shitcoining period, my traders will tell you, some of them are here right now. I'm telling you, we never had a loss. I never lost on a shitcoin ever in my life. I never lost. We made millions of dollars shitcoining, and I dropped it like a hot potato when I realized what Bitcoin truly was. It didn't matter what I made from it. It didn't matter how successful we were. We nailed every single thing. Now, in all honesty, it was sort of like shooting fish in a barrel at that time. I have to be honest with you. But I didn't need to lose my shirt to understand this lesson. And I'm hoping that I'm able to convince enough of you not to even try it or to get out if you're ahead. BitNav says, I DCA $10 a month just to piss off British Huddle. Guys, just so you know, British and I we become very good friends. I was just with British last night. I jab and nab at him every single, every opportunity I sort of get on Twitter. But we smoke cigars together practically every single day. We both spend a great deal of our time here in Medellin, Colombia. We love bantering and just throwing concepts related to Bitcoin back and forth with each other. I think that we both make each other sharper in our views and stronger in our stances and narratives. And British is awesome. And I do believe that British Huddle is going to have one of the largest and most influential Bitcoin-oriented channels in this industry. I think that is his destiny, and you should follow it for sure. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to agree with him, because I don't agree with everything. But then again, if I did, then he would be me. Right? So we don't need that. But okay, guys, listen, thank you once again for attending. I truly appreciate all of you who take the most precious commodity you have, which is your time. It's the only thing more precious than Bitcoin. And you give it to me for an hour, hour and a half. That is very special to me. It's something that I never take for granted. I have been speaking to people about financial freedom virtually for the last 3 decades. And I am very conscious of the sacrifice that's made to listen to me. It is something, once again, I don't take for granted. So I truly thank you. I do my best to try to deliver something of value every time I'm given the opportunity to speak.
on a mic or a podium. I hope I've done that today. If I haven't in some way, if I've missed the mark, I promise I'll get better. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. All right, don't forget, Global Bitcoin Buy Day on Monday. Let's go. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!